Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, and China. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful November the 4th, 2019, Ground of Deportes. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, I'm kind of worn out from 3 illustrious days of football, high school, college, professional. I mean, you saw every gamut of the game that you could see over the weekend.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. They even they decided to let Willie Taggart go because he didn't win as many games as 8 of the other coaches in his conference, Big C, but they let him go. A lot of guys kept their jobs, but it's all fair and love and war. A lot of good things happening around the NFL. And, I mean, I just want to get on that as we talk about it. There's something called poetic justice when a lot of good boys thought that the guy that broke Michael Vick's record should be a defensive back. Big C, we love basketball. It's also tipping off. It's all fair and love and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Big C Sports brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also, you can watch us on Xfinity, Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Amazon TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. So, Big C, I just say there's so much. I saw the the largest outdoor cocktail party. I saw the Coliseum that's empty as I've ever seen it in about all my lifetime watching USC football. And then I saw a guy that was playing quarterback and setting records that people said last year he should have been a defensive back. But I want to get your take on one thing. Is Donald Trump okay, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, he's been stammering a lot lately, and I don't know if that's from a drinking or a nervous problem that he may have and stuff, Charlton, but I saw him also frisking a baseball player today. So, I mean, you know, we know that baseball players grab themselves a lot during the game, and now all of a sudden you got the president grabbing on baseball players inappropriately.
Well, he says he wants to withhold funding from California because Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, hasn't done a good job cutting down forest fires. But the federal government controls the forest industry, not the state of California, Big C. I just want that to be known. But I do want to jump on some things that happen with people that we reach out for help, our military veterans. We always want to make sure that military veterans are getting help. We have a national suicide hotline number that we always give out because people need help, and they're not just into watching the game. National Suicide Hotline, military veterans or civilians, 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Just call that number, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Charlton, it's very imperative that we reach out to those people in America that are in need, starting with our military veterans that are no longer in service, and even those that are in service, Charlton, and even the layman person on the street in America. As Americans, we get so embattled in sports and all the things that are going on, we forget about those people that are desperately in psychological and social need in America. And many of these people have come back from scars, from war and things of that nature, Charlton. And we have to find a way to stem the tide of suicide here in America. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is one of those things that will help stem the tide. We have to find a way to get this number out to every American, whether you're in need or not in need, because everyone needs somebody to talk to. Just like we talk daily on our show and we hear all the broadcasts across the country talking, this is something that is a talking point in America. People need help, and you have to let it be known that you need help, and you have to have an outlet to get that help in. And the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there to help those people, Charlton.
800-273-8255, 838-8255 or text 838-255. That's 838-255. I want to tell you that sometime I'm telling you, I've been hearing more people paying homage to our military veterans, Big C. And this morning on the mothership, just watching earlier this morning, someone was wearing military fatigue. So everybody's doing their own way of reaching out. They may not give out a number, but they'll still wear the thing that people can identify with. So I really want to appreciate you for bringing out that number, Big C. I want to know just your thoughts. We have a lot of football to cover, but I want to jump into baseball first, because what a World Series for the underdog, at least. And I think what the Washington Nationals showed everybody in sports, you don't have to be considered the best team in the universe to be the best team. All you have to do is keep playing, getting your chance. And so, again, congratulations to the Washington Nationals. But I also want to go over, when we look at baseball players, and since the American League lost, I'll bring up them on the first part of it, Big C. When we look at Golden Glove winners in both the American League and the National League, there's some players that I just want to give their names out and their teams and get your thoughts on it. And when we look at catcher Roberto Perez, Cleveland Indians, give me your thoughts on what kind of athlete he is, Big C. Your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, the greatest part about being a catcher in baseball is that you're generally in control of the game. You're active every pitch, where everybody in the outfield and infield are not. You're sitting there, you're controlling the pitcher, you're adjusting the infield where you want people at, Charlton. Not only that, you've been able to stop those wild pitches when they come to the plate, and that's what makes you a Golden Glove winner.
It really does help. First baseman Matt Olson, Oakland Athletics, Big C. This is a team that has always been dealing with the money and the talent, and they have enough talent, but sometimes they don't pay enough money to keep players, Big C. But when you think about Matt Olson, that good old boy is definitely worth the list, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about first baseman, Charlton, these are guys that are one of the more active people on the infield. Not only that, when you think about the Oakland A's being one of the leaders that drove them to that wild card berth before being exited, by the Rays in the playoffs, Charlton, the Oakland A's are always an up-and-coming organization, and hopefully they can keep them in Oakland.
When you think about the Chicago White Sox, second baseman Omar Sanchez is playing for the White Sox, which will always be in the backdrop of the Cubs, but still doing his thing on the second base. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Omar Sanchez, this is an individual, Charlton, that is constantly being productive in the Windy City.
Yep.
The White Sox have not been a competitive team for a long time, but this shows the individualism of athletes when they're on the diamond.
Another player from the Midwest in the American League for the Cleveland Indians, Francisco Lindor, is another player. And Cleveland's just a great sports town. Will never be like Chicago or New York, but still a great sports town for that Midwest East Coast audience, Big C. Your thoughts on the great Francisco Lindor, Big C?
Lindor has been a perennial all-star. He rose to stardom a couple of years ago in the World Series when the Cleveland Indians were participating for the American League in the World Series, Charlton.
Yeah.
But he's always been that solid fielder, being able to turn those double plays consistently.
That was in the Big C World Series, the Cleveland Indians and the Chicago Cubs. What a great shortstop. On third base, you have Matt Chapman, another good old boy from the Oakland A's, and they always watch how much money they're going to spend to keep good talent. When you cross that money line, Big C, they let you go, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, there's no surprise that the Oakland A's had the rise in the off-season, the regular season schedule that they had, Charlton, when you look at the all-stars that they presented and Golden Glove winners.
Yeah, they're amazing. It's amazing they're going to get that new stadium. And watching the Oakland Raiders play yesterday, not seeing that dirt infield, and in a few years, well, you won't see the Raiders, but the A's will still be in town. Big C. Left fielder Alex Gordon, Kansas City Royals. This guy can really play and has it all covered in the outfield. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the small market teams, Charlton, often we don't get a chance to see them on television on a regular basis. The Kansas City Royals won the World Series just a couple of short seasons ago, Charlton, and now they have these Golden Glovers that are representing the team.
Yeah, center fielder Kevin Kiermaier, Tampa Bay Rays, another small market team with Tampa Bay. I think they had the lowest payroll, but they were right there and knocked out Oakland, and then even gave Houston a couple of chances to sweat a little bit more down south, Big C. Your thoughts on that center fielder, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, something must be good about playing in Tropicana Field down there in Florida,
Yeah.
Charlton. Keep the sun out of your eyes, allow you to win a Golden Glove.
Yeah, I think it's the outside of the arena that keeps people down in the Southern Side State. Basically, that's what's good to look at. Also, and you look at right field, Mookie Betts, Boston Red Sox, that good boy does have a World Series championship, even though they were knocked out of the playoffs. They didn't even get the chance to defend because they didn't get into the playoffs this year, but I would not be surprised if you see Boston swinging the bats in the playoffs next year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you're thinking about last year's AL MVP. Not only is he a dominant player, Charlton, but a great fielder, winning a Golden Glove after winning a World Series title the year before.
When you think about pitcher, you have Mike Leake, Seattle Mariners. This is a team way up in the great Northwest, and when they started the season, they actually took care of the defending champions, the Boston Red Sox. But then Seattle kind of fell upon hard times, but you can't blame him for it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they started out the regular season with the hottest record in Major League Baseball. They were 12-3 the first month of the season, and things seemed to slip through their hands after that, Charlton. But, you know, the Golden Glove arrived up in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, and so I love how we had the American League, and then we have the National League. They all come together, and sometimes you can find it would be, I wonder if people would even consider just seeding the teams and letting them play for the World Series championship. But if that happened, could you imagine it would not have been the Washington Nationals, because everyone was thinking that it's the Dodgers and the Astros as the two better teams, and the team that had to go through both of them, Big C, was this same team in the Washington Nationals. So seeding is not always good. Just play division and let the division champions play. Over in the National League, you look at catcher JT Realmuto for the Philadelphia Phillies. I know when you think about who made the most noise in the offseason for the Phillies, it wasn't him. But definitely as a catcher, someone you could count on every pitch. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Phillies were right in it to the latter part of the season until the Atlanta Braves knocked them out. But not only did they spend money in free agency during the offseason, but the one Golden Glover they had was behind the plate, holding on to everything for the team, Charlton.
Everything he was holding on to, Big C. Also, first baseman Anthony Rizzo, Chicago Cubs. It's amazing when you say Cubs and Harry Carey, take me out to the ball game. And now you just have, for them to get rid of their skipper, Big C, but people land on their feet fast. But Anthony Rizzo, Chicago Cubs, first baseman, he was always it's hard to steal on him because he was always covering the baseball, but definitely up for contention. Your thoughts?
Well, a surefire infielder, Charlton. He was part of that Cubs World Series team a couple of years ago. They just picked up the option on his contract for the next 3 years, so the Cubs will be sitting solid with a first baseman Gold Glover.
When you look at second baseman in the National League, Colton Wong, St. Louis Cardinals. This is the town with the St. Louis Arch, and they even have a sign in the outfield for McGuire when he was hitting so many home runs. Even though he admitted to having some juice, they never took the sign down. But this good boy has never been accused of that. Colton Wong, Big C, for the St. Louis Cardinals. Your thoughts?
Well, you think how competitive the Cardinals were in the playoffs, Charlton. They're the heart of the Midwest. They're the Cubs' nemesis there in that division, Charlton.
Yeah.
And they have a solid Gold Glove second baseman.
Well, they have that, and I'm sure he'll be there a long time. When you look at shortstop Nick Ahmed, Arizona Diamondbacks, here's another team that's always at least making noise in the beginning of the season. They have a beautiful ballpark down there, but at the same time, I don't like to see stadiums with a dome, and I think that's why the universe rewarded the Washington Nationals at least this year over the Astros. But going back down to the desert, Nick Ahmed, shortstop, Arizona Diamondbacks. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Diamondbacks have won a World Series down there in that stadium in the desert, Charlton. But this is a team that was very competitive throughout the season. They have that surefire shortstop and the Gold Gloves going out to the desert.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think about how many great players there are, and you're not always seeing them playing when we're in the World Series because they get knocked off. They may be the best player in the league, but not on the best team in the league. I want to look at third baseman, Big C, Nolan Arenado for the Colorado Rockies. And when you're in Colorado and you are a third baseman, you're going to get that ball that gets hot off the bat. Oftentimes he'll hit a lot of pop-ups, but when the ball's on the ground, he doesn't miss many. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Nolan Arenado shows what free agency would do for you, Charlton. The Rockies signed him to the third highest contract during the offseason, and he rewarded the team with a Gold Glove. I know the Rockies didn't make it to the playoffs,
right?
But Nolan Arenado did his part at the bat, and with the glove.
When you want someone to cover the deep balls hit in the outfield, the Arizona Diamondbacks, they also play at the ballpark in Colorado. And when you have a left fielder in David Peralta, this gentleman, he can cover the ground very well. And I think that they're in a good spot keeping him locked up in a good contract. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the greatest thing about an outfielder, Charlton, is not only having an arm, but having a glove. And so you need guys with wheels. And when you're not making the errors and you're making the assist on the infield, Charlton, after catching a fly ball and throwing somebody out, that's what gets you a gold glove.
That can get you that gold glove, Big C. When you look at center field, Lorenzo Cain, Milwaukee Brewers, here's a team that almost, it's like they're a team that's good. They were knocked out of the playoffs last year. And then you look at what happened to them this year with an injury to one of their key players up for all-star contention, Big C. But when you look at the center field, Lorenzo Cain, Milwaukee Brewers, he's a name that may be second fiddle on their team, but not second fiddle when it comes to Gold Glove. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you talk about Lorenzo, his nickname is Raising Cain, Charlton, and that's what he's done patrolling the outfield there in Milwaukee. He's been a perennial all-star and a multi-Gold Glove winner.
Yeah, and when you think of Gold Glove, right fielder Cody Bellinger, Los Angeles Dodgers, not the biggest guy, not the fastest guy. He's not the strongest guy, not someone that strikes fear into you from his size. He looks like a thin guy who just knows how to connect well with the bat, but also in the field, Big C, as a right fielder for the Dodgers. He's actually a very solid athlete, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's a Dodgers all MVP candidate, Charlton. Bellinger was a solid player all year long. He was up at the top in the home runs and batting average all the year long in the National League. Then he brings home the Golden Glove, Charlton. At least the Dodgers won something this year.
Yeah, well, the Dodgers, the good news for the Dodgers, they keep losing to the team that wins the World Series. They lost to the Houston Astros a couple of years ago, and then they lost to the Boston Red Sox last year. This year they lost to the Washington Nationals, and so they keep losing to the team that goes on to the World Series. So this year they beat themselves, a lot of people are saying. So maybe that's good news for the Dodgers to get back into the World Series next year. But if you go there, two out of 3 years is not bad at all. Nothing to write home and complain about, Big C. I want to get to a pitcher, Zach Greinke. I know he's been traveling the mound, Big C, with Arizona, and then he's down there with them good old boys in the World Series. But give me your thoughts on Greinke, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, an outstanding fielding pitcher, Charlton. Maybe if the Astros had left him in during the World Series, they may have pulled off Game 7, but he was a dominant fielder while he was with the Diamondbacks, and we also saw glimpses of it in the World Series.
So let me just, now that we've gotten through the World Series and the emotions are done with the World Series and people are saying, why didn't Cain come in and then why did they even pull Greinke, Big C? Because this guy, obviously, he pitched so well that you can afford to give up a run. You can afford to give up a home run and not lose your position. He's a guy that probably thought he could have pitched 9 innings, even though with all the stats people, they don't want you pitching 9 innings now, Big C. They want you to go 7 and get out of there. Any extra thought on second guessing, as we often do, why Cain was not in there? Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, baseball has become too much of an analytical game instead of an eye game. You're sitting there as a manager. You should be able to recognize what's going on with your own players, Charlton. Instead, you're looking at a notepad that's talking about analytics.
Yeah.
And in these analytics, it takes the human factor, just like replay does, out of the game. And so instead of just going with your gut, saying this guy is not really in trouble, you sit there and look at the numbers and say, okay, it's time to make a move.
Yeah, I just know it's all about your gut instinct. I remember Dusty Baker for the Giants used to do a lot of things by his gut. A lot of guys do, and you can always second guess. No second guess has ever been beaten in competition. But again, congratulations to the Washington Nationals. I want to throw the ball down to the world of college football. And when you think about it, wasn't the greatest weekend, especially what we have coming up with Alabama and LSU. The posters are really getting that right. I think Alabama or LSU, no matter what happens, Ohio State would benefit the most from that game coming up. But I want to get into Big C's college football top 5 rushers in Week 10 when you're coming up. A.J. Dillon, Boston College. Think about this. A 58-27 win at Syracuse, he had 35 carries, 242 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's enough yards to go for 2 games, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, A.J. Dillon has always been a workhorse since he's been there at Boston College, and to have the top rushing game of the weekend. And to think about how great his game was, Charlton, the rush for 242 yards, his backup gained 176 yards during that game also.
When your backup gets that many yards, I mean, how's the backup feel when a quarterback throws for, say, 300 yards in the game or 400 yards in the game, and people say, okay, take him out, they're up by 3 touchdowns, and bring in the backup quarterback. You ever hear about a quarterback or a running back who's the backup running back saying, wait a minute, good old boy already has 200 yards rushing, we're up by 3 touchdowns, get me in the game? Why don't they pull running backs the way they do quarterbacks? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you would think that, Charlton, but, Boston College had such a lead that they could, split time with their running backs, and it's great for college athletics. We see so many players now in this transfer portal, and they don't stay with the universities that they started with.
Yeah.
But to have 2 backs being able to split time, this is old-time grounded-out football.
Yeah, 3 yards in the cloud of dust. He was like 6 yards in the cloud of dust, Big C. Kalen Hill, Mississippi State, 54-24 win at Arkansas. And the Razorbacks are everybody's doorknob lately, Big C. 21 carries, 234 yards. Do you think he's tired from running the ball for 234 yards, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they had a lot of cowbells ringing down there in Starkville, Mississippi, Charlton. The Mississippi State, this was a few years ago, Dan Mullen left that program, went down to Florida.
Yeah.
But they have so much talent down there, Charlton. Those good old boys are grounded out on the ground in the SEC.
Yeah. Thinking of Chuba Hubbard, this good old boy, Oklahoma State, 34-27 win over TCU. Surprised some people, but not everybody. 20 carries, 223 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That good old boy ran enough for 2 games again, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about Chuba Hubbard, the running Canadian, Charlton. This kid's out of Edmonton, Canada, and he's the leading rusher in NCAA college football. We talk about all the great American backs, but we got a Canadian leading all U.S. backs in rushing, Charlton.
Yeah, and he even gets free health care, Big C, even though they get it free for college as long as you're still in school. Another great performance on the ground. Talk about picking them up, laying them down. Isaiah Spiller, Texas A&M, 45-14 win over University of Texas San Antonio, not being nice to the neighbors from the same state. 20 carries, 217 yards, 3 touchdowns. What was that performance when they played? I think they played Auburn earlier the year, and they didn't have the same performance. And even against Clemson, your thoughts, Big C?
Well, Charlton, this was a much-needed win for A&M, and they did it through ball control on the ground, Charlton. Their quarterback, Kellen Mond, hasn't been the quarterback that he thought he was going to be this year, so they had to resort back to the ground game, and Jimbo Fisher needs to win out to keep his job on safe footing at A&M.
Yeah, that's very true, especially where he left. They got rid of Taggart already, and $20 million payout, and his record's no worse than Jimbo at Texas A&M for $75 million. Some things don't make sense, but it's all fair and level war. Travis Etienne and Clemson, 59-14 win over Wofford, which is out of the Southern Conference. 9 carries, 212 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Big C, were they playing football at Wofford, or did they thought they were playing in a basketball game? Big C, your thoughts?
When you look at Etienne and he has those pinball numbers, Charlton, he only played 2 quarters. It would have been nice to see Dabo Swinney let him play 4 quarters, Charlton, to see if he could have possibly broke the NCAA rushing record.
Yeah, and I was just asking you that too. When quarterbacks, when they have a lot of yards and you're up by a couple of touchdowns, they'll pull them out. And then I guess that question's been answered at least by Dabo Swinney. I asked you if a running back's picking them up and laying them down for 200 yards on 9 carries, do they pull him out? Well, they pull that good old boy out, but then you don't get a chance to set records. And I know at some point in time when you watch a running back, they may have 15 carries, 98 yards, and they're up by 2 touchdowns. There's still 10 minutes to play. Why not let him get 100 yards? I thought that's very selfish. But when you got a guy that can possibly run for 400 yards in a game, not that you don't want him to embarrass another opponent. It's not his job to stop himself. But I think that'd be great for quarterbacks to have 400 yards. If the running back is on pace for it, why take him out, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, we've seen that more and more in college football where you let quarterbacks play, but also coaches, when you're sitting there and you're trying to get back into that championship hunt once again, as you are with Clemson, you want to keep your top players healthy, Charlton. And there's always a chance that a player can be nicked you get a frustrated defensive player when they're being blown out, hit somebody unnecessarily. So
Yeah.
I can also understand it from both perspectives as a coach.
Yeah, that's very true, Big C. College football, Week 10 passing leaders, Big C's thoughts. You don't always get victories, but you can do the rock downfield. Number 1, Holton Ahlers, ECU, East Carolina University. He was 43 of 46. That's amazing. You go 43 of 46 passing, that's better than handing off, Big C. In Cincinnati, 535 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, only 1 pick. You hard to find a quarterback to hand it off 46 times and not fumble 3 times. 43 of 46 passing, that has to be some kind of record, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that's being very efficient with the football. And as we look at the elite passes now in college football and the relaxed rules, we're seeing very exciting games on Saturday, even Friday nights now on the college football level. But airing it out and having big-time quarterbacks with big-time receivers.
Yeah.
What's amazing about that, Charlton, is that we all want to see the raves of the quarterbacks in the Power 5 conference.
Right.
But this lets you know the level of college football around the country.
Oh, it's amazing. There's amazing players out there, basically. Another good one, Stephen Colbert from LIB University, 63-21 win at UMass, 474 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions, Big C. 474 yards. It takes some players 2 games. Sam Darnold might take a whole half a year to get to 474 yards, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Liberty University, Charlton, they took liberty with UMass.
Yeah.
UMass has been one of the more struggling teams
Yeah.
in the country for the past couple of years, and they proved it once again, and their secondary is still looking for the deep ball.
Still looking for the deep ball. Shane Buechele, SMU. What a game. 48 of 54 at Memphis. 456 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. I thought that was a great game offensively, but I think it hurts both teams if they're trying to sneak into the playoffs. It's not going to happen for them, but they can still get a high bowl game. But when your defense is giving up, 48 points, it doesn't help you too well, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, so long to the undefeated season for SMU, Charlton.
Yeah.
Shane Buechele did his part, though, to keep the Ponies in that game. It's just the defense had a lackluster performance against that outstanding Memphis Tiger offense.
Yeah, so you're saying they needed more horsepower under the hood. Is that what you're saying, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, that Tiger, they will eat a horse, and they did that on Friday night.
Tigers can beat a horse. I would guarantee that. Josh Love, the San Jose State University, in a 52-42 loss to Boise State. That good boy, 438 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. It's amazing how Boise State can go on the road and look like they're going to get beaten by San Jose State, and then over time they just come back. But I'm still impressed. That Spartans program, they're starting to go in the right direction. They knocked off Arkansas earlier in the year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Boise State has been the pride of the Mountain West, Charlton, the past few years. They got a freshman quarterback there that can really deliver the ball. But San Jose State put up some big numbers, Charlton, and fought the Allen in that loss.
Yeah, and this is another score that shocked me. Jordan Love with Utah State, they lost 42-14 to BYU. He had 394 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. That might be why they lost by so much. But Utah State's a better team than that. But they have taken their lumps against teams like LSU and now BYU. But still, 394 yards, that's nothing to hold your head down. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Utah State, we thought they were going to be a lot better team than what they ended up being this year. They were, a dominant team in the Mountain West. They knocked off a couple of Power 5 teams. Last year, Charlton, Jordan Love had some injuries early in the season, and he just hadn't been the quarterback to get him over the hump this year.
Yeah, and it's amazing how we look at that. I want to come up with what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout, and then we're going to finish up strong on some college football. We're also going to discuss some NFL football and then a little bit of the NBA. We'll take the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout, and when we take that break, we hope that you'll come back and join us in just a moment. All right, we're back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause, and you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week around the world on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on the apps that I love, say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, also coming to Roku TV, as well as Apple TV, Amazon TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Big C, I want to get Big C's college football top 25 scores and just your thoughts. And some of these scores pain me, but I'm not as pained as Reggie Bush when they were talking about what USC needs to do. He said run the ball more. I think he's right. But we'll start with Clemson. You know, Clemson with the number 4 Clemson 59-14 win over Wofford. That's a game you normally see in September. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, teams in the power-ranked conference, Charlton, they always have a cupcake at some point in the schedule, and this was a total mismatch with number 4 Clemson.
Number 8 Georgia. And a surprise game to me, even though it's not really surprising, they're both equally matched, but they're back into the SEC title game, well, potentially Big C, 24-17 win over number 6 Florida. And I thought Florida would have their number, but actually Georgia came up big the way they had to. Big C, your thoughts?
With two outstanding defenses playing in this game, Charlton, Jake Fromm had his best game of the year at quarterback for Georgia, and they won the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Now they have an easy pass in the SEC East.
Well, a game on the West Coast that really sent shockwaves because USC, I think they won 23 of 26 home games over the last couple of years. But Oregon goes in there. This is the same Oregon that lost in the last 9 seconds to Auburn down in Texas, and they come back home. They've had some good games. They played a comfort behind game at Washington, won that in the last minute. They had Washington State at home, and they were trailing in that game, and then Washington State came down and took the lead. Oregon came back and won it on a field goal with no time left in the clock. And you might think, okay, this team's still going to be thinking about what they did to Washington State. They go into the Coliseum to take on a USC Trojan football team that felt like they were starting to find their moxie about them again. And they put up 56. It was a 56-24 loss for the Trojans at home. And how does Taggart lose his job and Helton still in Southern California? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, you know, I saw Taggart lose his job. And, you know, a coach losing his job in the middle of the season, what good does that do for a program, for the players or anything around there? You know, it was a buyout down at Florida State, and Taggart had 4 years left on his contract. Clay Helton, I mean, he's a product of the times in Los Angeles. Los Angeles has not been an attractive place to play college football for the last several years, Charlton. Nobody down there has won any Pac-12 titles they haven't challenged. Oregon comes down to L.A. every year, takes the top athletes out of there, takes them up north to Corvallis. It seems to be more attractive, and they come back home to their stomping ground, Charlton, and lay it on SC.
Yeah, they laid it on them, and I thought that was really amazing. It's amazing how you just went in there and they played like they were the team from Southern California. And to hear the Oregon coaching staff talk after the game that they were looking forward to doing recruiting before they went back to Oregon, I thought that was a slap on the face. But it's all fair and love and war. Number 9, Utah 33-28 over the Washington Huskies. And that's in front of 47,000 strong in Utah. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, Utah is still smarting from that loss to USC, knowing that they should have walked out of there with a victory. But nevertheless, they took care of business against the Huskies, and they're still in the chase for the Pac-12 title.
They're still in the chase. Another team that's not in the chase, number 11, Auburn in the SEC, with a 20-14 victory over Mississippi. A little bit tougher than they thought they would be, Big C, but a win is a win. Your thoughts?
Well, those interconference games in the SEC, Charlton, you're always playing against other talent. Auburn just doesn't have the passing game that they really need to expand their offense beyond where it is.
You look at number 14, Michigan. They're really finding themselves 38-7 over Maryland. That big win over Notre Dame really got them believing in themselves again, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they opened up the game with the 7th longest kick return in the history of the program, Charlton, and it set them off to a flying start, and Maryland had no chance of catching up after that.
Yeah, I didn't know Wolverines can fly until I saw them play the last 2 weeks, Big C. Number 24, Memphis. 54. I mean, it's amazing. They 54-48 win over number 15, SMU, in a game that you love from an offensive point of view, but defensive-wise, they couldn't handle the bigger teams in the Power 5, in my opinion. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, just an electrifying game. 102 points scored on Friday night between these two conference foes, and Memphis came out victorious.
speaking of touchdown Jesus, Notre Dame was praying at halftime that they could pull out this victory, and they did by the skin of their teeth. 21-20 over Virginia Tech, which was looking for the upset and almost got it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you see Notre Dame, Charlton, they struggled throughout this game. Ian Book scored the game-winning touchdown with just over a minute to go to lift the Irish to a victory.
Yeah, they had that fumble return that was returned about 98 yards. So Virginia Tech came in there and played hard. Number 17, you have Cincinnati 46-43 over East Carolina. And again, this is a team that's ranked. I think it helped Ohio State because Ohio State beat them down earlier in the year. Really can't wait for this weekend. But give me your thoughts on Cincinnati, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, quietly built a program down there. Former Ohio State head coach Charlton has gone to Cincinnati. He's recruiting there in the state. Everybody that doesn't go to Ohio State, he's getting them, and he's built a solid program.
He really has. As we come out to the West Coast, you look at number 21 Boise State, a 52-42 win over San Jose State. When I think of San Jose State, I think of Steve Clarkson as the quarterback that played down there in the 80s, played in the first California Raisin Bowl. I believe they beat Toledo in that game back in the 1980s. But that program is starting to make a comeback. When you give up, they scored 42 points on a Boise State team that plays pretty decent defense. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, one of their biggest alumnus is Jeff Garcia, who played quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, Charlton. And as you think about San Jose State putting up some numbers after beating Arkansas down in Fayetteville, but Boise is always going to be a tough foe.
And a team that I think is ranked too low, Kansas State, 38-10 over Kansas, the in-state rival, Big C. But this is the same Kansas State that knocked off Oklahoma, and they still can't get inside the top 15, Big C. But that's a team that can knock some people off because everybody's overlooking them, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you also got to look at the people that Kansas State lost to, Charlton. When you don't lose to ranked teams and you finally do beat them, it's hard to move up the polls. But over the next couple of weeks, you're going to see teams falling out of contention.
Yeah, you'll see that. A team that's going to climb that ladder again, number 23, Wake Forest, a 44-10 victory over North Carolina State. And that's a great-looking environment for Wake Forest. For football, you normally think of them as a basketball power. Their thoughts?
Well, the Demon Deacons had to call off the Dogs at halftime, Charlton. North Carolina State is a team that's on the downward slide right now, but to have Wake Forest potentially challenging Clemson in the ACC for the title, Charlton.
Yeah, so I love college football. I think a lot of things have been just put in the back pocket of who has a better conference, the better players. Football in November, you start to figure out what teams are really legitimate, and I love looking forward to that. I just want to run through a couple of more scores as well, Big C. You had Georgia Southern 24-21 over Appalachian State. We talked about that. West Virginia, they fell to number 11 Baylor. That was last week. Navy 56-10 over Connecticut. That was a Friday game. Talked about Michigan's beat down in Maryland 38-7. Wake Forest 44-10 over NC State. Notre Dame with a 21-20 over Virginia Tech. Kansas State 38-10 over Kansas. In that Georgia-Florida game, that was really impressive. Georgia 24-17 over Florida. Utah, this is a team, they're number 8 in the country. And the 33-28 win over Washington, which took Oregon down to the wire. But seeing USC beat Utah at the Coliseum, and then that same Oregon team going there and put up 50-plus doesn't help them a lot. So there's a lot of things going on in college football. I know a lot of good players are looking forward to going to the next level, and we'll look forward to going there with them. I want to jump tonight, Big C, into the world of the NFL, and I know everybody has their opinion about who are the best players in the NBA, who might be the MVP of the NFL. We know right now the Patriots are not going to go undefeated, and I want to start there because we have a game tonight in New Jersey where the Giants will take on the Cowboys. But remember, it was about the draft a year ago, and the Baltimore Ravens, they picked Lamar Jackson because he was still available. But this is for a lot of the good old boys, and you can Google what we say, but Big C was saying this guy would be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL if he given the opportunity. And they stomped New England 37-20. Lamar Jackson quiets all doubters who claim to be quarterback experts. And I wish the media could say who they were, because anyone can change on a tune, Big C. But to be prescient is to have knowledge of things before they happen. Just give me your thoughts on what you saw last night and Jackson kind of schooling Bill Belichick, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, what I saw with Jackson last night, Charlton, I saw the same thing a year ago when he went into San Diego and they beat up on the Chargers, and Chargers had one of the top defenses in the NFL. It's hard to scheme for a player when you only have 1 week, Charlton, and you're playing out your schedule in the NFL. The Patriots have been a team that's been beat up, even though they have one of the top defenses in the league, Charlton. It's hard. You can't find somebody who can emulate Lamar Jackson in practice. And if you go back to the game he played against the Chargers last year, Charlton, he did the same thing to them during the regular season, but when it came to the playoffs, things flipped the script, and the Chargers had book on it.
Yeah.
And they were able to defend him. I think if the Patriots were to face Baltimore again, then we would not see the dominant game. If you think about how quick a start they got out to the 17-0 lead,
Yeah.
the Patriots basically pulled close. If not for a fumble by Edelman, this game could have went in a different direction at that time. But I was ecstatic about what Lamar Jackson did in the game last night, Charlton. I'm glad he's putting all the naysayers about him to sleep, because there were 4 quarterbacks drafted ahead of Lamar Jackson in the draft.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield, number 1 overall. Everybody said he had a great arm. He was a competitor. Sam Darnold, your boy out of USC, who can't seem to realize the defensive backs on the other team are not his teammates to stop throwing the ball to him.
Yeah.
Josh Allen has had a mediocre year in Buffalo. Buffalo is 6-2, but not by Josh Allen. They have a great defense and an outstanding running game. Josh Rosen, we don't even know where he is. I think he missed his Uber ride to the game, Charlton.
Yeah.
But when I look at what Lamar Jackson has done in electrifying pro football, it throws me back a few years ago. His offensive coordinator is very integral in what he does, Greg Roman.
Yeah.
Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator when Harbaugh's brother was in San Francisco coaching, and he had a specific quarterback there that nobody will give a job to nowadays. And so he's taken that same offense to show you that caliber quarterback is what the NFL is turning to nowadays, Charlton. The more mobile, athletic, black quarterback, that they can be effective, that they're pressing enough to control the ebb and flow of the football game. And I got to give even more credit to Ozzie Newsome, the former general manager of the Baltimore Ravens, who retired after this last draft, Charlton, that he held. He brought in Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
He brought in the offensive linemen that were equipped to block for Lamar Jackson. He brought in Hollywood Brown, the wide receiver out of Oklahoma.
He's good.
Not only that, he signed Mark Ingram away from the New Orleans Saints in free agency, Charlton. Baltimore has always been known for great defense, but now they have an electrifying, energetic offense. They have players that are motivated about playing fast football. They got rid of a quarterback that had won a Super Bowl for him because he was lethargic and looked like he didn't have any interest in the game anymore.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson is what all the other young quarterbacks aspire to be. This is a guy that walks in. He's humble about what he's doing. He's very appreciative about playing in the NFL. He's not cocky and arrogant like the media darling Baker Mayfield, who can't explain to people why he's leading the NFL in interceptions.
Well, I want to just add to this, because when I look at what he did last night, I couldn't help but think about, what's it, Kuiper and McShane Kuiper, that are like media mavens. They've been around for a long time because they know the right people, and cronyism works in our business. I'm not knocking them, but it's Google. They were tearing this guy to shreds. And there's a lot of quarterbacks who are not torn to shreds, who can't even hold his jockstrap, Big C. I mean, they might want to, but they can't. And then when I hear, because some people, they have that dog whistle, well, he's not really, they'll say he has a high football IQ. The guy's very smart. He understands the game, how to read defenses, how to audible. I mean, it's a gift that comes with hard work. It's not like he was born out of the, you're not born that way. You got to develop it. So he developed his skills. But I want to get your thoughts on something, and maybe you already answered it, but sometimes it's worth hearing twice. If you are a GM and you saw that, how do you, giving Colin Kaepernick a job or not, that we know that's about bigotry. But why does an NFL GM not want that performance and that type of athlete in their backfield, even if he's not white? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that look is going to come more normal in the NFL over the next couple of years. We've seen a slow progression of that. I mean, ironically, if you look at the top 5 quarterbacks QBR rating in the NFL at the halfway point of the season, they're all African-American.
Yeah.
They all have similarities about their game. They're not all just pure drop-back passes that sit in the pocket and wait on somebody to run them down, Charlton. They've brought mobility and athleticism to the game as well as those strong and accurate arms. And we saw that in spades last night, no pun intended.
Yep.
But Lamar Jackson's put so much pressure on defenses that, you got that RPO option that he has.
Every play.
And as a defender, that's the worst thing you hate to see is a quarterback that has agility. We've seen bits and pieces of it over the years in football. Marlon Briscoe was the first one to bring it to the NFL with the Denver Broncos back in the 60s. He comes out as 9-1 as a starter, and he couldn't play another game at quarterback because he destroyed the myth of the black quarterback, and he changed what defenses were able to do in the NFL.
Yeah.
We've seen it with Randall Cunningham in the NFL. We've seen it with Derek Dickey in the NFL. Vince Evans played 18 years in the NFL as a mobile backup quarterback with several different organizations. We've seen this over time. And as quarterbacks come in and change the dynamics of the game, they have to say, okay, what's next for the white quarterback? Are we going to eliminate them from that position, which has always been held out for them?
Well, there's a kid down in New Orleans, Taysom Hill, kind of has the same style, not as athletic, but he has that same style. I just want to this is for the guys that said that Jackson should have been a defensive back or a wide receiver, because their names. You can Google the announcers who said that garbage. It's like they're dumb or they're ignorant is the same thing. But I want to get on the QBR ratings. There are 5 young quarterbacks in the bottom 7 that the mainstream media labeled these guys as franchise quarterbacks. It's important to say that, because if you don't say that, then they'll keep lying to you and then taking credit once the guy comes around and shows how good they are. But Big C was saying this to you. You were saying this when he was at Louisville. He'll be a franchise quarterback. Number 32, Sam Darnold, out of my favorite university, University of Southern California Trojans. QBR rating, 35.1. There was a play in the end zone down in Florida against the Dolphins, gave the Dolphins their first win, where the ball was snapped to the side of his head and over his head. He looks at it. When Cam Newton did a similar thing in the Super Bowl out here in San Francisco, Santa Clara, when Carolina played Denver, people said, oh my God, he's lost the desire to play. He's not a team leader. He's selfish. He doesn't really want to win. When Sam Darnold did the same thing, they said, well, maybe they just need a better offensive line, Big C. 35.1 QBR, your thoughts?
Well, that's the bottom of the heap in the NFL amongst starting quarterbacks. Mononucleosis or not, Charlton, he just doesn't have the ability to play in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and he was told to stay a year longer in college, and he said, no, I want the money. But is that what you're paying for, really? Baker Mayfield, the media's darling. They love this guy. He dotted the I on the Ohio State football stadium when he played at Oklahoma. And, to maybe try to destruction of property. I don't know if you go that far. But the Cleveland Browns, this maven of a quarterback, 40.1 QBR, walking out of media meetings, telling people that I can do the blankety blank what I want. I know people talk about Jameis Winston a lot, Big C. But Baker Mayfield was also running from the cops last year or 2 years ago. It was on television. He didn't get shot. Their black men got shot in their car, okay, with a cell phone. This guy ran, no beat down, no shot. They just tackled him. But I just explain how he's a franchise guy now and not sitting on the bench to learn from somebody else. Your thoughts?
Well, the character of Baker Mayfield is really showing that he spends more time worrying about his social media life, Charlton, his advertising campaign, than he does preparing for the NFL.
Yep.
This is a guy that was drafted, in front of Lamar Jackson. He was the first quarterback taken in the first round. Lamar Jackson, the last quarterback taken in the first round. And we've seen the difference in productivity between these two athletes, Charlton. Lamar Jackson has been a class act ever since he's been in the NFL. He's been humble. He's been appreciative. He's been productive. Baker Mayfield has been arrogant. He's been cocky. I remember when Hugh Jackson was fired last year, Charlton.
That's right.
He said good riddance to the coach, being arrogant. And I think if the people in Cleveland right now, they long for Hugh Jackson to be back versus what they have now in Freddie Kitchens and Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, isn't that something? That is so true. I think the universe sometimes will bring justice back to you. Mr. Trubisky for the Chicago Bears, 34.8 QBR. And I want everybody to succeed. But none of these guys were told to play defensive back. None of them were told they'd be better off helping the team if they became a wide receiver or a running back. We were told how smart, how erudite, how intelligent they are, a natural-born leader. This is the look of the franchise. QBR 34.8 in Chicago. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think Mitch Trubisky was drafted off his name and looked more than anything else. He had that Italian, Middle Eastern name that went well in Chicago area, Charlton, with those fans. They took him ahead of Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
All you have to do is look at the productivity of those two quarterbacks, Charlton, and say that Chicago make a bad mistake.
Well, in the last 10 minutes, Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills, I know he's a tall guy out of Wyoming by way of Wheatley Junior College and Fireball High School, the Central Valley of California, but now he's in Buffalo Bill territory. The record's good, but his numbers aren't. 34.9 QBR, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he struggled throwing the football this year, Charlton. His mobility has made him the leader in Buffalo that he is and helped them with the record, also Frank Gore. But that defense has been outstanding, and just from his numbers, you see that he struggled as well as those other quarterbacks, Charlton, that were drafted in front of Lamar Jackson.
Daniel Jones. Think about this guy, ranked 26 in the QBR, lowest QBR for the New York Giants, and 50.3 QBR. I remember their head coach came out and said the media is going to be licking their wounds. Where are these guys now when he got a couple of decent games? And now this is what being prescient means. Because you said when Eli lost his job, he said, Charlton, we'll see Eli again before the end of the season. And no one believed that, especially their head coach, when he said, where are all those media guys now? But you can't tell me that the Mara family are happy with a quarterback that they made their first pick, their prodigal son, to replace the other prodigal son. And his QBR is 50.3. They may as well have kept Eli, Big C. Your thoughts?
They could have kept Eli. The reason why Eli was benched, Charlton, is because they didn't want Eli going into the NFL at a sub-500 quarterback. He's 500 for his career wins-loss. He's even across the board. That's the reason why Daniel Jones was inserted into the lineup. Teams didn't have tape on Daniel Jones. He brought mobility to the playing surface, Charlton. He should have lost the game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, except for the kicker missed 3 kicks in that game.
Yeah.
Even the game-winning field goal, there was a chip shot.
Well,
but everybody has tape on Daniel Jones now, and he can't throw the ball over 40 yards down the field accurately. Very easy to defend as an NFL team.
Well, we talked about Lamar Jackson, how he gave Tom Brady his first loss since last year. Tom Brady hadn't lost since last year, Big C, and his first loss. And you can't knock Tom Brady. He's done it all that you can ask a quarterback to do, but he's still America's media darling. He's the NFL's prodigal quarterback. But think about this. For him to lose his first game in 2 seasons to a quarterback that mainstream media said did not even have the smarts to play the position, that should be a defensive back. And for him to showcase and show up Tom Brady, Brady's a classy guy. Congratulations. But the knuckleheads in media, they got to say, hey, I was wrong. Don't just keep saying, hey, this guy's amazing. No, say what you said when he came out, that you didn't want him. I want to go to the top 5 NFL quarterbacks QBR ratings, Big C, in the last 8 minutes. Number 1, Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys, playing this game tonight. 79 QBR, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Dak Prescott is a guy that's playing on that rookie salary, and everybody in Dallas talking about you got to give us a home team discount, Charlton. The home team discount is winning. You sit there and you pay pennies because you were giving all the money to Tony Romo.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott, and everybody saying he's not a franchise quarterback. He's just a top-rated quarterback in the NFL.
Another good old boy from the Northwest, Big C. This guy's slippery. He must eat a lot of fish at that fish market up in Seattle, Big C. The great Houdini, Russell Wilson, Seattle Seahawks, 78.5 QBR rating. So I'll just put him at 79. And no one can expect any less from Russell, but amazing. This guy's amazing. Your thoughts?
Well, I look at how the media beat up him during the offseason, Charlton, because he demanded the money from Seattle, and he got paid. He gave the team a deadline. They met his deadline. Everybody called him cocky and uppity,
yep.
And all he's done is win ever since then.
Yeah, this uppity, blankly blank just keeps winning. Number 3, Patrick Mahomes, Big C, Kansas City Chiefs, 76.9 QBR. He still has to hitch in his giddy up. Your thoughts?
Well, he's been out the last 2 games, Charlton, and Kansas City won a game yesterday without him. But when he's in, he's the most electrifying player in the NFL, bar to none. regardless of what kind of season anybody's having.
You know, they say performers in the United States make more money when they go to Europe because they just do, Big C. But you look at Deshaun Watson, number 4 QBR, Houston, Texas, 74.8. He's another magician. And I hope it doesn't come back to cost Houston his pirouette when he was being tackled and threw the ball to the end zone for a touchdown. And they called him down in the grass, Big C, and it cost them a game against Indianapolis, Big C. He did the same thing against the Raiders. He did the same thing across the pond against Jacksonville. This guy is simply amazing. You shouldn't blow the whistle until he's on the ground, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, what we've seen from Deshaun Watson since he's entered the NFL 3 years ago in his rookie season, Charlton, prior to tearing up his knee, has been nothing less than miraculous. If not for Patrick Mahomes, Charlton, he'd be the quarterback everyone talks about every week, every down.
I agree. And then, as we talked about, Lamar Jackson for Baltimore Ravens, 69.9 QBR, so put him at 70 again. I mean, this guy really, Big C, I believe he started in week 8 last year when they put Flacco on the bench. And so he's really just played one season of NFL football. He's already broken Michael Vick's record for rookie quarterbacks that with rushing yards. And to see the way he had, New England last night, slipping and falling down, he hasn't even gotten 2 years of experience. He's doing it with 1 year of experience. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, what I look at is those 5 quarterbacks that you mentioned, Charlton. I find a common theme with them. They're all African-American quarterbacks. They're all the top-rated quarterbacks in the NFL. And only one of them is getting paid, and that's Russell Wilson. So it seems, and the media wants to talk about the guys you want with the football in their hands the last 2 minutes of the game, Charlton. I believe all 5 of those quarterbacks that you just named have a winning record this year.
Yeah.
And so when you look at those $100 million quarterbacks, and they're not rated in the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, and people say, well, you're being color biased. No, I'm being number biased.
Yeah.
So you have to look at the productivity of these guys and wonder why more African-American quarterbacks out of college don't get an opportunity when you see the productivity and the winning attitude that they bring to the NFL and the winning landscape that they bring to organizations.
Yeah, it's so true. We just ask people to Google it. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all over the universe on the #1 podcast network and the universe iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Speaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on my favorite 2 apps, Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television. You can follow Big C Sports launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon TV, Fire TV, and other smart TVs. I want to just quickly run down some NFL scores. Going back to Thursday night, you had the 49ers 28-25 over the Cardinals. There was the Texans 26-3 over the Jaguars. The Eagles 22-14 over the Chicago Bears. And then you had the Chiefs with the last-second field goal against the Vikings, 26-23. And then the Colts, Vinatieri missed a field goal, 26-24. The Steelers have run off 4 in a row at home, Big C. 4 in a row. They're tied now at 4-4 in the season. And the Dolphins, congratulations. I don't know if it's worthy of a Gatorade bath, but 26-18 over the Jets. The Bills, 24-9 over the Redskins. The Panthers, they found their quarterback 30-20 over the Titans. And the Raiders, 31-24 over the Lions. The Seahawks in an overtime game, 40-34 over the Buccaneers. The Chargers, 26-11 over the Packers. And the Broncos, 24-19 over the Browns. And again, we talked about the Ravens, 37-20 over the Patriots. Big C, tonight, we have the Giants in the Meadowlands against the Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? This is a game where you'll see Prescott again, the most underpaid quarterback in the NFL. Just give me your thoughts on what we can see tonight in the Meadowlands.
Well, Charlton, this is a game where the Giants are in desperate need of trying to slow down the Cowboys. The Cowboys are looking to maintain supremacy in the NFC East, Charlton, with the Philadelphia's coming off a big win yesterday against the Chicago Bears. Dak Prescott has been on a roll. We've said he's the top-rated quarterback in the NFL QBR rating, Charlton. He has complete command of this Dallas offensive team, Charlton, and they lost their last time in New York to the Jets. I don't see them repeating that against the Giants tonight.
I don't see that happening either, Big C. I just want to quickly mention a couple of games for NBA, not a big schedule. You have the Wizards, and they're at home versus the Pistons. You have the Pelicans on the road at the Nets. The Rockets will play at the Grizzlies. The Bucks will be on the road at the Timberwolves. The 76ers at the Sun. The Blazers at the Warriors, which was last year's Western Conference Finals. Big C, I'm sure they'll have a different result on the winning side of the ball tonight because Golden State has been struggling. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble, Big C. What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, we've had an exciting weekend of football with the NFL, college, and high school football to be capped off tonight by the Dallas Cowboys. Can they have the electrifying game that we saw last night in Baltimore and run up and down the field on the New York Giants?
Well, I'm sure they're going to try, and I'm sure they'll have success. And as the great Jimmy Johnson said, how about them Cowboys? Well, I'm going to say, how about Big C Sports? You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow us on Spreaker.com. You can follow us on Xfinity Comcast Television, also launching on other networks. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.